Hey, what's going on? Thank you for stopping by. Um, Today, we're going to expand a little bit more on the spectrum of conclusions chart. If you haven't seen my previous videos that explain the logic behind that chart, please go back and watch that video before you come and watch this video. Sometimes lies persist with the blessings of reality. And to explain what that means, I want you to consider the question that is on your screen here. What defines you in the truest sense? Think about it, and let's consider what are the things that you consider and say, this is me. Now, this is how it normally goes. So we usually look at ourselves in terms of genetics, the environment, and then we come to some sort of conclusions about our identity. So genetics, we can't argue with that. Our physical potential or race, those are things that we can't argue with. Environment, what sort of like environment do we grow up in? Nationality, culture, education. And then from that, we get a sense of, we decide on a sense of who we are. And this is how it goes. But is this perspective or is this path of reason a path that gives us a full picture of what we truly are? I would argue that it's not. And here's why. Above all this, there's something else that we normally don't consider, something that we often totally forget about. And that is, we don't consider ourselves as an entity that has the potential for life. And then that potential of life can take advantage of genetics, the material compositions of a body. The environment uses its potential to learn within that, whatever environment it is in, and then operates within a finite identity. And we say, this is who I am. And if we look at life completely ignoring this part here on the top, then we are going to be blind to what we are. And I have a few definitions here just to clarify things a little bit more. And we're going to start off with potential. So I regard potential as something that represents all that we can be, all that you can be, physical and non-physical. And then genetics represent the makings of our physical bodies, physical potential, and natural distinctive characteristics, race, gender, and all that. And then the environment represents the settings in which we grow up in. So that is what country, culture, or in terms of like what skills or what abilities you develop within the environment that you grow up in. You could grow up in a family of swimmers, and that can be a skill set that you just naturally become better at because you're exposed to it. Or you can grow up in an environment of farmers or people who are engineers, and you just grow up with that mindset that is more engineering inclined or farming inclined, and you are better or you become better in that area more than somebody that is not raised or has not developed their potential within that particular environment. So when you put all that stuff together, then you come up with a sense of an identity. So we've looked at the spectrum of conclusion chart, and so this is the on the left here, we've got the materialistic perspective of identity. So we might think along the lines of my genes, environment, and my culture make up who I am. And then we have the sense of identity. But if we are going to discover our essence, then we have to go against that grain of logic. We have to reverse that process and realize that I'm not entirely, a product of my environment. I'm not entirely a product of my genetics, and I'm not entirely a product of my culture. And so this might be because of something that happens that just awakens you to the fact that you're not entirely confined. Your potentials are not confined to your culture or your environment or your genetics. Your potentials exist above those things. And that, to me, is spirituality in a nutshell. So regardless of what belief system you practice, if it does not elevate you in the direction of realizing your essence, your true essence, then it's doing a disservice to you. And if for some people who are just strictly reason out their existence in terms of genes, environment, and culture, then they're going to have a limited scope or narrow view of life, which leaves the rest of existence as a mystery. And they define themselves within something that is finite. But there's so much more to life. I mean, you can't just look at this body and say, this is it, that's it. It just does not make any sense. So that's the part of the logic behind the spectrum of conclusions chart, is that it's a tool that widens our scope of observation and allows us to see things from a different perspective, with affirmation, of course. The emphasis is on finding affirmation that even though what we're talking about, things like potential, is not something that is tangible, you can see it by its manifestations in our abilities. So if we look strictly at the left side here, going down the logic, a more materialistic logic, we may find negative affirmation. Talk about lies. Sometimes you cannot find affirmation for lies, but you can also sometimes find negative affirmation. And what I mean by that is we look at the physical nature of our body. We look at the environment, and we just conclude solidly on those things that's it. This is life. And so our ability to observe anything beyond that will be limited, or will become limited. Hence, we become unaware. So I'm going to switch here to the chart. I've made a little bit more modifications here just to add the concept of affirmation, as you can have affirmation going up positively in a way that enhances your awareness, or you can have affirmation in a way that also limits your awareness, and that's the negative affirmation. And then you have affirmation, that increases your awareness, even of things that are not tangible, and that's more positive affirmation, which leads us to conclusions that help us explain or understand the rest of life. And I do cover this in more detail and with more examples in my book, Subtle Affirmations, which I recommend you check it out. because spirituality, as I said, we're going against the grain of logic that is, we constantly being bombarded within our culture with this materialistic logic. So spirituality has to be a practice. We have to practice that mindset. We have to keep on the process of affirming, looking at those things that are not tangible and affirming that they do exist in order to have certainty in them, if you will. So I hope you found this enlightening, and hopefully you can start looking at things from a different perspective that gives you better understanding of life. And if you want to know more about the spectrum of conclusions chart, check out my book. Subtle Affirmations. Read it, and let's get to discussing. Let's talk about it, and whether you agree or disagree, it's totally fine. The way that I look at life is we are all on a path of trying to establish the truth, a pilgrimage, if you will, towards the truth. So whether you're an atheist or you're a scientist, materialistic science, or you're a believer, the goal is the truth. And the only thing that I'm faithful to, that I'm loyal to as an individual, is the truth. That's really all I care about. So I'm willing to look at things from a different perspective. If you have something that you think is more true or leads us to discovering the truth, then I'll be very open to having a discussion about that. So that's it for this video. I'm gonna do one last video just to wrap things up, and then we'll just see where we go with this. And I look forward to hearing from you, and hopefully we can continue this discussion. So that's it for now. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.